Welcome to the Yukon and North 61. In the 80s and 90s, I lived in Nunavut, and we could get 5 caribou each a year, and when you had a family, that meant you could get 10, 15, 20, depending how big your family was. So we ate a lot of caribou. I managed to lay my hands on a 350 Remington Magnum Remington 660. This was my dream gun, and I used it. And I went out with Inuit people, and I noticed what they used is 22 250s and 22's, 223s rather. And I thought, well, what's going on? What am I missing here? Because I'd heard that these were bad wounders and that the bullets would blow up. And I kept waiting for those 55 grain bullets from Remington or Winchester, whatever was for sale at the store, to blow up, and they never did. So I ended up going with a 22 250 Ackley improved, a 27-inch barrel, made for me by the local smith, Dick Smith. And so I had a 223, and I tested these rifles for a couple of years. I got 9 caribou with them, and I wrote this article, never got published, but here's what I learned. So one of the things I did right at the start was I sectioned bullets, and I tried a number of different types of bullets. One type of bullet that I tried was just your regular cup and core bullets, like there's a 63 grain Sierra, for example. And if you take a look at that 63 Sierra when it stops moving, it has about a 0.020 base jacket thickness. It tapers a little bit to 0.016, and it's got a fairly wide opening. And it's really got no cannoneer, no real method for that core to stay in. So I theorized that that bullet would likely be a little bit like a varmint bullet. It would open up very, very fast. And then on the other end of the spectrum, well, here's a 55 grain trophy bonded. And if you take a look at that bullet, look at the solid copper base. It's bonded. It's constructed like a fine game bullet. And I also tried the 60 all red, which was custom made. It was a bonded bullet, and he put 3 jackets in there, so it had a triple jacket. So it was not as thick as the trophy, but it was very, very thick. All red also made this 80 grain partition bullet. And again, that partition bullet is made by putting a jacket upside down. Pretty clever, really. Really bullet I really liked was this 74 grain RWS. And it also had a 0.40. These all had like 0.04 to 0.6 thickness of jackets. And this one has a double cannoneer on it. Very, very heavy cannoneers. Really lock that in. I really like that bullet. And then I tried the match bullets. There's an 80 grain Berger, and they're just thin all the way with a real thin point. So I took a look at those, and I thought, you know, these game bullets might actually work at much better penetration. Would they open up well enough? And if you take a look at the point expansion, the point of many of these bullets is almost as thin as the varmint bullets. So I thought they'd actually do a pretty good job opening up, and that actually turned to be the true. And then there was this spear bullet, which was a little different than the others. It was a 0.26. I call it a hybrid bullet. No special cannoneer, nothing to really lock that in, but it had a medium heavy jacket. So those bullets, I thought, I at least had a hypothesis at the end. I thought these match bullets would be, I'm not sure how well they were going to open up, and I'm not sure how well they would stick together. The varmint bullets I thought would probably fragment pretty badly. And then these hunting bullets I thought would hang together, but some of them have fairly low sectional density, like that 55 grain all red is well under 0.20 as far as the sectional density, so or trophy bonded. So 60 grain all red's a little bit up there, And even when you go to a 74, I think that's actually 74 grain RWS bullet, it's fairly low sectional density. It's only when you get up to about 80 grains do you get kind of the equivalent to probably a good deer bullet. So that was my theory. Just taking these bullets apart. So I started shooting these bullets in Saskatoon one summer I was also doing a lot of gopher hunting. So it was fun having that 22-250 Ackley improved. Because one of the rifles, one of the bullets I used rather is the 40 grain VMAX at 4,000 feet per second. And oh my God, that thing blew up gophers. But it also blew up newsprint. Only penetrated 2.5 inches on wet and dry newsprint. And I started at this point using wet and dry newsprint because it seemed to be harder on the bullet than just wet newsprint. There was a deceleration and acceleration. There was a less constant deceleration in the media, so I think it was harder on the bullet. And I pretty much proved my hypothesis. Yes, some of these varmint bullets, like you'll notice that 55 grain Remington at 3245, would turn into fragments. So, and penetrate about 5 inches. So, but that 5 inches seemed to be enough to kill caribou. Part of the reason for that is caribou, when they're badly wounded, tend to lay down. So I'm thinking 7.5 inches based on my experience is a good minimum. So what made that? The 55 grain bear claw, really nice bullet. So let me show you some of those bullets. So this is the bear claws. So that is a typical bear claw behavior. You'll see that even at the highest speed, it still retained 40 grains of its 55 grains. So that's about what? Over 70%. Even when pushed really, really hard, they didn't lose that bonding worked, and the base worked, that really heavy base. So that is a really good bullet. The only problem is that it runs out of speed fairly quickly. I don't have this here. I added the 60 grain Nosler partition, and those worked awfully well too. So I stopped using the Bergers and those types of bullets, all the match bullets, because they would tend to rivet like this. They're very, very inconsistent. I didn't trust them at all, and I still wonder about using Bergers on big game. Sometimes they blow up, and sometimes the hollow point would close, and so very inconsistent. The 53 grain X bullets consistently penetrated the best. At really high speed, they just turn into a little copper rivet. And the petals, you'd shed the petals. But they'd always penetrate well. You'll see here they penetrated 10.5 inches even when driven at 3,700 feet per second. When you slow them down to under 2,000 feet per second, they wouldn't expand. But that's a long way out there when you start them at 3,700. Bullet I really started to like a lot was that 74 grain RWS cone point. And there it is at really high speed. You could occasionally get them to fragment at 3,500 feet per second or so, 3,300 feet per second, but when they were slowed down, they're very consistent. And one of the things they did in the animal is they created a wound in both halves. And this is a concept of shock reflex that led to the 5.6 by 57 using that 74 grain RWS. They wanted a bullet that opened up and penetrated. And you'll see it doesn't expand to huge. So it would create a really good wound channel in the first half, but it would also create a decent wound channel in the second half. And this is the only bullet that consistently did that. The 80 All Red, which was a partition bullet, was a little bit inconsistent, but sometimes worked quite well. Here you can see it actually fell apart, so you could torture them to apart. But the 60 grain triple bolt that was the 60 grain that was basically a bonded bullet worked really, really well. So if you put a game type bullet, you get actually pretty good performance. So I wasn't seeing the blow ups. I was seeing very, very consistent performance. They not only did they expand at and stick together at high speed, they also expanded at low speed. Really good performance with these bullets. Also at low speed, you would see the penetration would actually go up. Even the 80 grain Sierra went way up, but they would tumble in the media. But the 74 RWS is suddenly penetrating 9 inches. The 60 grain Allred's 8.5 inches. The 55 Bear Claw 7.4 inches. So at long range, impacting 2,500 feet per second, these bullets actually, the non-X bullets actually started to catch up to the X bullet as far as penetration goes. I also started to test the zone of destruction. So I took a look at the length of the wound channel and also the diameter of the wound channel, and I found the area. And the wound volume of these 22s was very similar to a 243. So 243, 100 grain power points, I figured it gave about a 3.93 inch wound volume. And the 80 Allred was almost right behind there. The 53X bullet was right behind there as well. But if you compared those to a 358, over twice, almost, 2.5 times as much, the wound channel. And the other thing about the wound channel is this 350 Rem Mag really did a much, much better second half. And then I shot a lot of game with these bullets. And I also loaded them for other people and started a game log. So I'll give you the précis of the game log. Basically what the game log told me was that once you get down below 1,000 foot-pounds, you just don't have enough energy. You get inconsistent kills even on caribou. So you got to keep your speed up. So on a 223, you got to keep your shots at 130 yards or so or closer. You can shoot up to 200 yards with a 22-250. With heavy bullets in a 22-50 and a fast twist, you might be able to knock that all the way to 250. But and the other thing is, because the bullets slow down fairly quickly because of the low sectional density, even those varmint type bullets like the 63 grain Sierra, once they get down around 2,600 feet per second, they actually hang together pretty well. So the Innu would have stumbled into a very interesting piece is that there's a fairly narrow range where something like a 22-250 is effective, and that's where they shoot most of the caribou. So between like 80 and 200 yards, you're in a pretty good zone for a 22-250 with factory ammo. So if you very seldom shoot closer than that, and they're very seldom shooting further away. It'll, because caribou lay down when they're wounded, you could push that range, but I don't like to because I like having those instant kills. And it also doesn't damage all that much meat. So this idea of this blow-ups, I just never saw that. You would see it if you went with something like a VMAX. So, after a fair bit of expanse, what I realized is that a 22-50 with the right kind of bullets is like a mini 6mm. And you're better off just using a 6mm or 243. There's really not much to be gained by using the fast 22s. Although I notice guys like Heimo Korth uses his even for moose. But he just absolutely shoots the bullet exactly where it needs to go. And that's another factor. Is that when you're a very steady meat hunter and you shoot well, you don't need all that much caliber. And you're not extending the range like sometimes a trophy hunter might. So it was a very interesting experiment. Now I am down to only one high power. I have a 22 high power in a over and under Berno combo gun. And with 70 grain bullets, that gun is those bullets from Bellet, forget the name of the company. They act like little game bullets, And I'm sure that would be a really good caribou gun out to about 180 yards, which is, it's accurate enough to do that too. But I've also got the 7x57 rimmed, which would be better in every way. So, can you use a 22? Yep. But the question why enters, and I'm not sure why. In a very narrow set of parameters, it's useful, but for an all-around firearm, it's you can do better by moving up. I find even the 6mm to be a bit small. For me, life begins at 25. But thanks for watching.
That was 25-06. If you take a look, people say 25-06 isn't enough gun for caribou.